My director called me into her office on a Tuesday morning in March, 3 days after I'd closed the largest deal in our company's 12-year history. She sat behind her mahogany desk, fingers steepled, wearing the expression I'd come to recognize as her disappointed parent face. The $27 million contract I'd negotiated was apparently secondary to what she termed my aggressive approach during the final negotiations. I listened as she explained that several people had expressed concerns about my negotiation style. Too pushy, she said, too demanding. The client had mentioned feeling pressured, though they'd signed anyway. She wanted me to understand that relationship preservation was more important than any single deal, no matter how large. I nodded appropriately and accepted her feedback with the professional grace I'd cultivated over 8 years at Henderson and Associates. What I didn't mention was the folder sitting in my desk drawer, filled with printed emails that painted a rather different picture of those final negotiations. These things happen in corporate environments. Sometimes the full story takes time to emerge. Let me back up 6 months to when this all began. Henderson and Associates had been pursuing Meridian Industries for nearly 2 years. Meridian manufactured specialized components for aerospace applications, and they were looking to consolidate their legal representation under one firm. The potential value was enormous, not just the initial retainer, but the ongoing work that could span decades. Every major firm in the city was courting them. I'd been Henderson's lead on complex contract negotiations for 5 years. My background in engineering, combined with my law degree, made me particularly valuable for technical deals. I understood the language clients spoke, the risks they faced, the regulatory environment they navigated. This wasn't something you could fake or learn overnight. The Meridian pursuit started like most others. Initial meetings, presentations, relationship building. Their legal team was led by Sarah Chen, their general counsel, who'd built her reputation handling multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. She was thorough, demanding, and didn't suffer fools gladly. During our first meeting, she spent 40 minutes testing my understanding of aerospace regulatory frameworks. I apparently passed because we were invited to the next round. My director, Jennifer Walsh, had joined Henderson 18 months earlier from a larger firm downtown. She'd been brought in to expand our corporate practice, and the Meridian opportunity was exactly the kind of win that would establish her reputation. She made it clear that this client was her priority and that I would be supporting her lead on the matter. The pursuit continued through the summer and fall. We submitted proposals, participated in beauty contests, and gradually narrowed the field. By December, we were one of 3 firms still in contention. The stakes couldn't have been higher for Henderson. Landing Meridian would represent 40% growth in our corporate practice revenue. Then Jennifer got an offer from her former firm. The timing was curious, to say the least. Just as we entered final negotiations with Meridian, Jennifer's old partners came calling with a senior partnership track and a substantial compensation increase. She accepted immediately, giving 2 weeks' notice in early January. The transition was awkward for everyone involved. Jennifer had been the primary relationship holder with Meridian, and her sudden departure left gaps in our knowledge of their specific concerns and priorities. She offered to help with the handoff, but her attention was already focused on her new opportunity. Most of her Meridian files were either incomplete or organized in ways that made little sense to anyone else. Sarah Chen was not pleased with the development. During our first meeting without Jennifer, she made it clear that she viewed the leadership change as a sign of instability at Henderson. Other firms were circling, sensing opportunity in our disruption. The Meridian deal, which had seemed nearly certain just weeks earlier, was suddenly in jeopardy. I found myself in an unusual position. Despite having done most of the technical work on the Meridian matter, I hadn't been included in many of the strategic discussions between Jennifer and their executive team. Now I was expected to step in and salvage a relationship that was rapidly deteriorating. The first challenge was understanding exactly what Jennifer had promised Meridian regarding our service model and pricing structure. Her files contained multiple versions of our proposal, with handwritten notes that contradicted each other. When I asked her to clarify during her final week, she suggested I figure it out myself since I'd be handling things going forward. More concerning were the emails I discovered while organizing Jennifer's Meridian files. She'd been copying David Marshall, Henderson's managing partner, on correspondence that painted a very specific picture of how the negotiations were progressing. According to her messages, Meridian was eager to move forward and primarily concerned with getting the best possible rate structure. The reality was more complicated. Sarah Chen had made it clear that Meridian's primary concern was service quality and responsiveness. They'd had poor experiences with large firms that treated them as a small client despite their growth potential. They wanted assurance that Henderson would provide senior-level attention and wouldn't hand their work off to junior associates. Jennifer's emails to David emphasized the fee negotiations while barely mentioning Meridian's service requirements. This created a significant disconnect between what our leadership expected from the deal and what the client actually wanted. When I raised these concerns with David, he seemed surprised that service model was even a consideration. By mid-January, it was becoming clear that the Meridian relationship might not survive Jennifer's departure. Sarah Chen was asking pointed questions about Henderson's commitment to their account, and our competitors were aggressively positioning themselves as more stable alternatives. I needed to act quickly to preserve the opportunity. The solution required understanding exactly what Meridian valued most in a legal relationship. I spent hours reviewing their previous disputes, regulatory challenges, and business development initiatives. The pattern that emerged was clear. They needed lawyers who understood their industry deeply and could anticipate problems before they became crises. This played directly to my strengths. My engineering background meant I could read their technical specifications, understand their manufacturing processes, and identify potential liability issues that pure legal generalists might miss. I began demonstrating this knowledge in every interaction, showing Meridian that Henderson could provide the specialized expertise they needed. Sarah Chen responded positively to this approach. During a late January meeting, she mentioned that she was impressed with my grasp of their technical challenges and appreciated having someone who could speak her language. For the first time since Jennifer's departure, I felt like we had momentum again. Then David assigned Patricia Summers to co-lead the Meridian relationship with me. Patricia was a talented corporate lawyer with an impressive client roster, but she had no technical background and limited experience with aerospace clients. Her approach to business development focused on relationship building and entertainment, client dinners, sporting events, golf outings. This worked well with her existing clients, but it was exactly the wrong strategy for Meridian. Sarah Chen had made it clear that she preferred substance over social interaction. She wanted to discuss regulatory compliance, not restaurant recommendations. She valued expertise over entertainment. Patricia's well-intentioned attempts to build personal relationships were falling flat and potentially undermining our credibility. I tried to address this diplomatically, suggesting that Patricia focus on the administrative aspects of the relationship while I handled the technical discussions. She interpreted this as an attempt to sideline her and complained to David that I wasn't being collaborative. From David's perspective, Patricia was the senior lawyer who should be leading client interactions, regardless of technical expertise. The situation came to a head in early February during a crucial meeting with Meridian's executive team. Patricia had arranged what she called a get-to-know-you lunch at an expensive downtown restaurant. Sarah Chen arrived with Meridian's CEO and Chief Operating Officer, clearly expecting a working session to discuss their legal needs. Instead, Patricia spent 30 minutes discussing the restaurant's wine selection and sharing stories about other clients she'd entertained there. The Meridian executives grew increasingly uncomfortable as it became clear that we weren't going to discuss their actual legal requirements. Sarah Chen finally interrupted to ask whether we'd prepared materials addressing the compliance issues she'd outlined in her email the previous week. We hadn't. Patricia had focused on restaurant selection instead of case preparation. I had prepared materials, but Patricia had specifically told me not to bring them because this was supposed to be a relationship-building session, not a working meeting. The lunch ended badly. The Meridian team left after 90 minutes, politely but firmly declining Patricia's invitation to continue the conversation over drinks. Sarah Chen's final comment was that she needed to better understand Henderson's approach to client service before moving forward. That evening, I received an email from Sarah requesting a follow-up meeting to discuss the compliance materials I'd mentioned during lunch. She suggested meeting at Meridian's offices rather than another restaurant. The message was clear. She wanted substance, not entertainment. Patricia was furious when I told her about Sarah's request. She felt that Sarah was being deliberately difficult in trying to undermine her leadership of the relationship. When I suggested that we simply give Sarah what she wanted, detailed compliance analysis rather than social interaction, Patricia accused me of not supporting the team approach. David sided with Patricia, explaining that relationship building was essential to long-term client retention. He instructed me to coordinate with Patricia on all Meridian interactions and to follow her lead on relationship management strategy. My technical expertise was valuable, he said, but Patricia's experience with corporate clients was more important for overall account management. This created an impossible situation. Sarah Chen wanted technical discussions and detailed legal analysis. Patricia wanted relationship building and social interaction. David wanted me to defer to Patricia's approach while still providing the technical expertise that had originally attracted Meridian's interest. The compromise we reached satisfied no one. Patricia would lead client meetings, but I would prepare technical materials for discussion. Patricia would handle relationship management, but I would respond to Sarah's technical questions. Patricia would coordinate our overall strategy, but I would develop our legal recommendations. In practice, this meant that our communications with Meridian became confusing and inconsistent. Patricia would promise certain deliverables during her relationship building calls, while I would provide different materials based on my technical analysis. Sarah Chen grew increasingly frustrated with our lack of coordination and began questioning whether Henderson was the right choice for their needs. By late February, 2 of our 3 competitors had been eliminated from consideration. We were now competing directly against Morrison & Associates, a firm with a strong aerospace practice and established relationships in the industry. Sarah Chen scheduled final presentations for the first week of March, giving both firms one last opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities. The stakes were clear. This wasn't just about winning the Meridian business anymore. It was about proving that Henderson could compete for major corporate clients despite our recent leadership changes. Losing to Morrison would signal to the market that we were vulnerable and potentially trigger other client defections. Patricia threw herself into presentation preparation with characteristic energy. She developed elaborate slide decks showcasing Henderson's corporate capabilities, assembled client testimonials, and arranged for David to personally participate in our final pitch. She was determined to demonstrate that Henderson could match Morrison's resources and experience. What Patricia's presentation lacked was any meaningful discussion of Meridian's specific legal needs. The slides were generic corporate marketing materials that could have been used for any client in any industry. The testimonials came from clients with completely different business models and regulatory challenges. David's participation added senior leadership presence, but no additional technical expertise. I suggested supplementing Patricia's presentation with detailed analysis of Meridian's compliance requirements and regulatory challenges. This would demonstrate our understanding of their specific situation and show how Henderson's capabilities aligned with their actual needs. Patricia rejected this approach, arguing that technical details would bore the executive team and distract from our relationship-building message. The presentation was scheduled for March 2nd at Meridian's headquarters. Patricia insisted on leading the discussion, with David providing senior partnership credibility and me available for technical questions if they arose. She'd allocated 15 minutes for technical discussion out of a 90-minute presentation. The night before our presentation, I received an email from Sarah Chen that changed everything. She'd forwarded a message from Meridian's chief operating officer outlining specific concerns about their current legal representation. The issues were highly technical, involving regulatory interpretations that could impact their largest government contracts. Sarah's email was direct. Meridian needed immediate guidance on these compliance issues, and their final firm selection would be based largely on who could provide the most sophisticated analysis of the regulatory challenges they were facing. The March 2nd presentation should focus on demonstrating technical expertise rather than general capabilities. I forwarded Sarah's email to Patricia immediately, suggesting that we restructure our presentation to address Meridian's stated priorities. Patricia's response was dismissive. She'd worked too hard on the relationship-building approach to change course at the last minute. Besides, she argued, Sarah Chen was just one voice at Meridian, and the executive team would be more interested in overall firm capabilities than technical details. This was a critical miscalculation. Sarah Chen wasn't just another voice at Meridian. She was their general counsel and the primary decision-maker for legal services selection. More importantly, her email had specifically outlined what would drive their final decision. Ignoring her guidance would be professional suicide. I spent that night preparing technical materials anyway, knowing that Patricia would be annoyed but unable to ignore Meridian's clearly stated priorities. I developed detailed regulatory analysis, compliance recommendations, and risk mitigation strategies. If Sarah Chen asked technical questions during the presentation, I wanted to be ready with comprehensive answers. The March 2nd presentation was a disaster from the start. Meridian's conference room contained exactly the people Sarah Chen had told us would be making the decision. Herself, the CEO, the COO, and the Chief Financial Officer. Patricia launched into her relationship-building presentation, while 4 executives sat waiting for technical analysis they'd specifically requested. After 20 minutes of generic corporate marketing materials, Sarah Chen interrupted to ask whether we'd prepared materials addressing the compliance issues she'd outlined in her email. Patricia acknowledged receiving the email, but explained that we'd focused our presentation on Henderson's overall capabilities rather than technical details. The room went quiet. Sarah Chen looked around the table, then asked whether I had prepared any analysis of their compliance challenges. I had, but Patricia had specifically instructed me not to bring technical materials to avoid complicating her presentation message. I made a decision that probably saved our chances with Meridian, but definitely complicated my relationship with Patricia. I excused myself briefly, retrieved the technical materials from my car, and spent the next 40 minutes walking through detailed analysis of Meridian's regulatory challenges and compliance requirements. The response was immediate and positive. The executive team engaged actively with the technical discussion, asked sophisticated follow-up questions, and clearly appreciated having their specific concerns addressed comprehensively. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we were connecting with what Meridian actually needed from their legal counsel. Patricia was furious. During the drive back to our office, she accused me of deliberately undermining her presentation and exceeding my role in the client relationship. She'd specifically structured the meeting to focus on relationship building, and I'd ignored her strategy to pursue my own agenda. From Patricia's perspective, I'd been insubordinate and potentially damaged our relationship with Meridian by contradicting her presentation approach. From my perspective, I'd saved our chances by providing what the client had specifically requested. The disconnect was fundamental and probably irreparable. David's reaction was predictably complex. He was pleased that our presentation had gone well and that Meridian seemed engaged with Henderson's capabilities. But he was concerned about the lack of coordination between Patricia and me, and he wanted to understand why we deviated from our planned presentation approach. Patricia's version of events emphasized my failure to follow team protocols and my decision to bring unauthorized materials to the client meeting. She portrayed this as a pattern of non-collaborative behavior that was undermining her ability to manage the client relationship effectively. My version focused on Meridian's specifically stated priorities and our obligation to address their concerns comprehensively. I'd brought technical materials because Sarah Chen had explicitly requested technical analysis, and ignoring that request would have been professional malpractice. David's solution was to remove me from future Meridian interactions until we could resolve our internal coordination issues. Patricia would handle all client communications going forward, with me providing technical support as needed, but not participating directly in client meetings. This was problematic for several reasons. First, Sarah Chen had specifically mentioned appreciating my technical expertise and had asked several follow-up questions that required my direct involvement. Second, Meridian's decision timeline was accelerated, meaning that any delay in providing technical analysis could cost us the engagement. Third, Patricia still didn't understand the technical issues well enough to represent our capabilities accurately. I tried to explain these concerns to David, but he'd made his decision. Team coordination was more important than individual expertise, and Patricia's experience with corporate clients made her better suited to manage the relationship regardless of technical considerations. The next few days were tense and awkward. Sarah Chen sent several technical questions that required detailed analysis and sophisticated regulatory interpretation. Patricia attempted to coordinate my responses through her own communications, but the process was slow and often resulted in incomplete or confusing information reaching the client. By March 8th, it was clear that our internal dysfunction was affecting our client service quality. Sarah Chen's emails were becoming shorter and more formal, suggesting frustration with our responsiveness and coordination. Patricia was working hard to maintain the relationship, but she couldn't provide the technical expertise that Meridian clearly valued. Then we learned that Morrison and Associates had submitted supplemental materials addressing exactly the compliance issues that Sarah Chen had outlined in her original email. Their analysis was comprehensive, sophisticated, and directly responsive to Meridian's stated concerns. They'd done everything we should have done immediately after receiving Sarah's guidance. Patricia panicked. She realized that Morrison was providing superior technical analysis, while we were struggling with internal coordination issues. She asked me to prepare competing materials that would demonstrate Henderson's technical capabilities more effectively than Morrison's submission. The materials I prepared were good, better than Morrison's analysis in several important respects. But they were also 6 days late and submitted in response to our competitor's initiative rather than Meridian's original request. We were playing catch-up instead of leading the technical discussion. Sarah Chen's response was polite but pointed. She appreciated Henderson's additional analysis and found several insights valuable. However, she noted that Morrison had been more responsive to their timeline and had anticipated several issues that we'd only addressed after seeing their materials. This was the professional equivalent of showing up to an exam after seeing someone else's answers. Even if our analysis was ultimately superior, the timing made it look reactive rather than proactive. Morrison had demonstrated better client service by responding immediately to Meridian's stated needs. The final decision meeting was scheduled for March 15th. Both firms would have 30 minutes to present their final recommendations and answer any remaining questions. Patricia was determined to salvage our chances through superior presentation and relationship management. Her strategy was to acknowledge Morrison's technical capabilities while emphasizing Henderson's superior client service and relationship focus. She would concede that Morrison might have slight technical advantages, but argue that Henderson's collaborative approach and senior-level attention made us the better long-term partner. This was exactly the wrong approach for exactly the wrong audience. Sarah Chen had demonstrated repeatedly that she valued technical expertise over relationship management, and Meridian's executive team had consistently prioritized substance over style. Conceding technical superiority to Morrison while claiming relationship advantages would play directly into their strengths. I suggested a different approach. Demonstrate superior technical understanding by identifying issues that Morrison had missed, then show how Henderson's comprehensive analysis would prevent future problems. This would establish our technical credibility while highlighting practical business benefits that Meridian's executives would appreciate. Patricia rejected this strategy, arguing that attacking Morrison's technical analysis would seem defensive and unprofessional. She preferred to take the high road by acknowledging their capabilities while differentiating Henderson through relationship and service advantages. The March 15th meeting confirmed my worst fears. Patricia's presentation was professional, polished, and completely misaligned with Meridian's priorities. She spent 20 minutes discussing Henderson's client service philosophy, while Morrison's technical analysis remained unchallenged and superior in the minds of everyone present. During the question period, Sarah Chen asked specifically about regulatory interpretation issues that Morrison had flagged in their analysis. Patricia attempted to deflect the question to me, but the damage was already done. We were positioned as the firm with good intentions but inferior technical capabilities. Morrison & Associates was selected as Meridian's legal counsel on March 18th. Sarah Chen's notification email was courteous but clear. They'd chosen the firm that demonstrated superior technical expertise and responsiveness to their specific needs. She thanked Henderson for our efforts and suggested that we might have opportunities to work together on smaller matters in the future. Patricia's reaction was predictable. She blamed our loss on my failure to provide adequate technical support and my decision to work independently rather than collaboratively. If I'd been more responsive to her coordination efforts, she argued, we could have demonstrated superior technical capabilities while maintaining our relationship advantages. David's post-mortem was more nuanced but equally frustrating. He acknowledged that Morrison had provided superior technical analysis, but maintained that Henderson's overall approach had been sound. We'd simply been outmaneuvered by a more experienced aerospace firm with established industry relationships. What neither Patricia nor David seemed to understand was that we'd lost Meridian the moment we decided to ignore Sarah Chen's clearly stated priorities. Everything else, the presentation strategy, the technical analysis, the relationship building, was secondary to our fundamental misreading of what the client actually wanted. But the story doesn't end with losing the Meridian engagement. Sometimes the most important lessons come from analyzing why things went wrong, and sometimes that analysis reveals uncomfortable truths about organizational priorities and decision-making processes. 3 weeks after Morrison's selection, I received an unexpected email from Sarah Chen. She was reaching out to discuss a smaller matter that Meridian needed to handle quickly, a regulatory interpretation issue that required exactly the kind of technical expertise I demonstrated during our presentations. The engagement was modest, maybe $50,000 in fees, but it represented something more important: validation that my technical analysis had been valuable, even if our overall approach had been flawed. Sarah Chen specifically mentioned appreciating my regulatory expertise and responsiveness during our earlier interactions. I mentioned this opportunity to Patricia, assuming that she'd want to pursue any Meridian-related work despite our earlier disappointment. Her response was surprisingly dismissive. The engagement was too small to be worth pursuing, and working on regulatory matters would typecast Henderson as a specialty firm rather than full-service corporate counsel. This response revealed something important about Patricia's priorities. She was more concerned with positioning Henderson for large corporate transactions than with demonstrating technical expertise in specialized areas. The regulatory work that I found intellectually challenging and professionally satisfying was exactly the kind of engagement she wanted to avoid. I decided to pursue the matter independently with David's permission. The work was complex and technically demanding, requiring detailed analysis of aerospace regulations and their application to Meridian's specific manufacturing processes. It was exactly the kind of challenge that had drawn me to law in the first place. The project went exceptionally well. My analysis identified several compliance issues that Meridian hadn't recognized and provided practical solutions that saved them both time and money. Sarah Chen was pleased with the results and mentioned that she'd been impressed with Henderson's technical capabilities, at least in specialized regulatory matters. More importantly, the engagement demonstrated that technical expertise could be valuable even in small matters, and that client relationships didn't always require entertainment and relationship building. Sometimes clients just wanted sophisticated analysis and practical solutions to complex problems. Patricia's reaction to the successful engagement was mixed. She was pleased that Henderson had generated additional revenue from Meridian, but concerned that we were being positioned as regulatory specialists rather than general corporate counsel. She worried that future clients might see us as technically competent, but strategically limited. This concern reflected a fundamental misunderstanding of how specialized expertise could differentiate Henderson in a competitive market. Rather than limiting our opportunities, technical capabilities could distinguish us from larger firms that offered generic corporate services without industry-specific knowledge. I began developing this theme in subsequent business development activities. Instead of competing directly with larger firms on relationship management and general capabilities, Henderson could offer specialized expertise that addressed specific client needs more effectively than generic corporate services. The approach was working. Over the following months, I developed relationships with several aerospace and technology companies that valued technical legal analysis over traditional relationship building. These clients were willing to pay premium rates for sophisticated expertise, and they generated steady revenue streams that weren't dependent on large transactional matters. Patricia remained skeptical of this strategy. She continued to believe that relationship building and general corporate capabilities were more important for long-term client retention than technical specialization. Our approaches were fundamentally incompatible, and the tension was affecting both our working relationship and our business development effectiveness. The situation came to a head in August when we were competing for another significant engagement, this time with a medical device manufacturer that needed regulatory guidance for FDA approval processes. The potential client had specifically requested Henderson because of our demonstrated technical expertise in regulatory matters. Patricia insisted on leading the relationship, despite having no background in FDA regulations or medical device compliance. She was convinced that her general corporate experience would be more valuable than my technical knowledge, and she wanted to position Henderson as full-service corporate counsel rather than regulatory specialists. The client meeting was a repeat of our Meridian experience. Patricia focused on relationship building and general capabilities while the client waited for technical analysis they'd specifically requested. When I tried to address their regulatory concerns, Patricia redirected the conversation to broader corporate strategy and relationship management. We lost that engagement too, for exactly the same reasons we'd lost Meridian. The client selected a firm that demonstrated superior technical expertise and responsiveness to their specific needs. Our inability to align our approach with client priorities was becoming a pattern that was costing Henderson significant opportunities. David's patience was wearing thin. 2 major losses in 6 months suggested systematic problems with our business development approach. He convened a series of meetings to analyze what was going wrong and how we could improve our competitive position. The discussions revealed fundamental disagreements about Henderson's positioning and strategy. Patricia advocated for competing directly with larger firms through superior relationship management and general corporate capabilities. I argued for differentiating through specialized technical expertise that address specific client needs more effectively than generic services. David was caught between competing philosophies, each with legitimate merits but incompatible execution requirements. Patricia's approach had worked well with her existing clients, who valued relationship building and appreciated social interaction. My approach was proving effective with technically sophisticated clients who prioritized expertise over entertainment. The resolution was to divide our business development efforts by client type. Patricia would pursue relationship-driven opportunities with clients who valued social interaction and general corporate services. I would focus on technically sophisticated clients who needed specialized expertise and regulatory guidance. This compromise satisfied neither of us completely, but seemed like a reasonable way to leverage our different strengths while minimizing our incompatible approaches. Patricia could build relationships without worrying about technical complications, while I could provide specialized expertise without navigating relationship management politics. The strategy worked better than either of us had expected. Over the following year, Henderson's revenues grew significantly as we developed distinct market positions that played to our respective strengths. Patricia's relationship-building approach generated steady transactional work from clients who appreciated her social skills and general corporate guidance. My technical specialization attracted clients who needed sophisticated regulatory analysis and industry-specific expertise. These engagements often involved complex compliance issues that required deep technical knowledge and generated premium fees for specialized advice. The success was gratifying but also revealing. Henderson's growth accelerated when we stopped trying to compete directly with larger firms using their own strategies and instead developed specialized capabilities that differentiated us in specific market segments. Patricia and I were both more effective when we weren't competing for the same clients or trying to coordinate incompatible approaches. Our different strengths could coexist successfully when they were applied to appropriate opportunities rather than forced into generic business development strategies. The lesson was broader than just business development tactics. Organizations often assume that standardized approaches will be more efficient than specialized strategies, but the reality is more complex. Sometimes differentiation through specialized expertise creates more value than generic capabilities applied across all opportunities. This insight became increasingly important as Henderson continued to grow and compete for larger engagements. Our technical specialization was attracting attention from potential clients who were frustrated with the generic services provided by larger firms. They wanted lawyers who understood their industries deeply and could anticipate problems before they became crises. By the following spring, my regulatory practice had grown to represent nearly 30% of Henderson's total revenues. The clients were diverse: aerospace manufacturers, medical device companies, technology firms, and pharmaceutical developers. But they shared common characteristics: technical sophistication, regulatory complexity, and willingness to pay premium rates for specialized expertise. Patricia's corporate practice had also grown significantly, serving clients who preferred relationship-based legal services and appreciated her social skills and general business understanding. Her clients were typically smaller companies or family-owned businesses that valued personal attention and collaborative approaches to legal problem-solving. The parallel growth demonstrated something important about professional services marketing. There's no single approach that works for all clients or all situations. Success requires understanding what different clients value and developing capabilities that address their specific needs rather than assuming generic solutions will satisfy everyone. This realization became crucial when Henderson was invited to participate in another major competitive process, this time with a Fortune 500 company that was consolidating their legal services under fewer outside firms. The opportunity was enormous, potentially larger than the Meridian engagement we'd lost the previous year. The prospective client was Integrated Systems Corporation, a defense contractor with complex regulatory requirements and sophisticated legal needs. They wanted to select 3 primary outside firms that could handle everything from routine commercial matters to specialized government contracting issues. David asked both Patricia and me to participate in the pursuit, recognizing that ISC's needs would require both relationship management capabilities and technical expertise. This time, however, we structured our approach to leverage our different strengths rather than forcing artificial coordination between incompatible strategies. Patricia would lead relationship development with ISC's business executives, focusing on Henderson's overall capabilities and commitment to client service. I would handle technical discussions with their legal and regulatory teams, demonstrating our specialized expertise in government contracting and defense industry regulations. The division of responsibilities was clear and complementary. Patricia could build relationships without worrying about technical complications, while I could provide specialized analysis without navigating relationship politics. Most importantly, ISC would receive coordinated service that addressed both their business and technical needs. The initial meetings went exceptionally well. Patricia connected effectively with ISC's executive team, who appreciated her collaborative approach and understanding of business priorities. Meanwhile, their legal team was impressed with my grasp of defense contracting regulations and ability to explain complex compliance requirements in practical terms. For the first time in our partnership, Patricia and I were working together effectively rather than competing for control of the client relationship. Our different approaches were complementary rather than conflicting, and ISC was receiving comprehensive service that addressed their full range of needs. The competitive process continued for several months, with multiple rounds of presentations, reference checks, and detailed capability assessments. ISC was methodical and thorough, evaluating not just our technical qualifications, but also our cultural fit and long-term service capabilities. Throughout the process, Patricia and I maintained our collaborative approach while playing to our respective strengths. She handled business development strategy and relationship coordination, while I focused on technical analysis and regulatory expertise. The combination was proving effective with ISC's diverse evaluation team. In November, we received notification that Henderson had been selected as one of ISC's 3 primary outside counsel. The engagement would generate substantial revenues and position us for additional opportunities with other defense contractors who valued our demonstrated expertise in their industry. More importantly, the success validated our collaborative approach and demonstrated that our different strengths could be leveraged effectively when properly coordinated. Patricia's relationship building and my technical expertise were both valuable. They just needed to be applied appropriately rather than forced into generic strategies. The ISC success marked a turning point for Henderson's business development approach. Instead of trying to compete with larger firms using standardized strategies, we began positioning ourselves as specialists who could provide both sophisticated technical expertise and personalized client service. This positioning attracted attention from other potential clients who were frustrated with the generic services provided by larger firms. They appreciated working with lawyers who understood their industries deeply and could provide both technical analysis and practical business guidance. Over the following year, Henderson's growth accelerated significantly. Our specialized approach was generating both higher revenues and better client satisfaction than our previous generic strategies. Patricia and I had both found ways to contribute effectively without competing for the same opportunities or trying to coordinate incompatible approaches. The professional satisfaction was substantial. Instead of struggling to adapt my technical expertise to relationship-building strategies, I could focus on providing sophisticated analysis that clients actually valued. Patricia could concentrate on relationship development without worrying about technical complications that didn't align with her strengths. The success also validated broader lessons about professional services marketing and organizational effectiveness. Generic approaches often seem more efficient in theory, but specialized strategies frequently create more value in practice. Success requires understanding what different clients value and developing capabilities that address their specific needs. These insights became increasingly relevant as Henderson continued to grow and attract attention from larger firms that were interested in acquiring our specialized capabilities. Our technical expertise and client relationships were valuable assets that differentiated us in a competitive market. By the spring of our 3rd year, several firms had approached David about potential merger opportunities. They were attracted to Henderson's specialized capabilities and established client relationships, particularly in technically sophisticated industries where generic legal services were less effective. The merger discussions were flattering but also concerning. Larger firms often acquire specialized practices specifically to eliminate the competition that differentiation creates. Once absorbed, specialized capabilities frequently get diluted into generic services that conform to standardized organizational approaches. Patricia was intrigued by the merger possibilities, recognizing that larger firms could provide resources and market presence that Henderson couldn't match independently. She saw acquisition as an opportunity to expand her client base and advance her career within a more substantial organizational structure. My reaction was more skeptical. The specialized expertise that had driven Henderson's growth would likely be less valued within a larger firm that emphasized standardized approaches and generic capabilities. Technical specialization might be seen as limiting rather than differentiating in an organization focused on broad market coverage. David was wrestling with competing considerations. The merger opportunities offered substantial financial benefits and could provide resources for continued growth. But they also risked losing the specialized focus that had made Henderson successful and attractive to acquisition targets in the first place. The decision ultimately came down to organizational values and long-term objectives. Were we more interested in maximizing short-term financial returns through acquisition, or in maintaining the specialized capabilities that had driven our success and professional satisfaction? After extensive discussion and analysis, David decided to decline the merger opportunities and continue building Henderson as an independent specialized firm. The decision reflected both confidence in our growth trajectory and commitment to maintaining the technical expertise that differentiated us in the market. The choice was professionally satisfying and strategically sound. Henderson's specialized approach continued to attract clients who valued technical expertise and personalized service over generic capabilities and standardized approaches. Our growth trajectory remained strong, and our client satisfaction levels were consistently high. More importantly, the decision validated the professional choices that had brought Patricia and me to this point. Instead of conforming to generic approaches or trying to compete directly with larger firms using their own strategies, we had developed specialized capabilities that created unique value in specific market segments. The lesson was broader than just business strategy. Professional success often requires resisting pressure to conform to standardized approaches that seem more efficient or acceptable, but actually dilute the specialized capabilities that create distinctive value. Looking back on the journey from losing the Meridian engagement to building Henderson's specialized practice, the key insight was recognizing that different clients value different capabilities, and success requires matching your strengths to appropriate opportunities rather than trying to be everything to everyone. Patricia's relationship-building skills were valuable for clients who appreciated social interaction and collaborative approaches. My technical expertise was essential for clients who needed sophisticated analysis and regulatory guidance. Both approaches could be successful when applied appropriately. The mistake we'd made with Meridian was trying to force relationship-building strategies on clients who specifically valued technical expertise. The success we achieved with ISC came from coordinating our different approaches rather than choosing between them or trying to blend them into generic strategies. This realization shaped not just our business development approach, but also our understanding of professional effectiveness more broadly. Instead of trying to develop generic capabilities that would work in all situations, we focused on understanding what we did best and finding opportunities where those strengths created the most value. The approach was both professionally satisfying and commercially successful. Henderson's revenues continued to grow as we attracted clients who specifically valued our specialized capabilities. Our client relationships were deeper and more sustainable because we were providing services that addressed their actual needs rather than generic offerings that satisfied no one completely. The experience also reinforced important lessons about organizational dynamics and professional relationships. Patricia and I were both more effective when we weren't competing for the same opportunities or trying to coordinate fundamentally incompatible approaches. Our different strengths could coexist successfully when they were applied to appropriate situations rather than forced into standardized strategies. The key was recognizing that diversity of approaches could be an organizational strength rather than a coordination problem. By our fourth year, Henderson had established itself as a recognized specialist in technically sophisticated legal services. Our client base included leading companies in aerospace, defense, medical devices, and emerging technologies. The relationships were stable and profitable, generating steady revenues that weren't dependent on large transactional matters. Patricia had developed equally strong relationships with clients who valued her collaborative approach and business understanding. Her practice focused on smaller companies and family-owned businesses that appreciated personalized attention and relationship-based service delivery. The parallel success demonstrated that there were multiple paths to professional effectiveness and that organizational success could come from leveraging different strengths rather than enforcing standardized approaches. Henderson's growth reflected the combined value of our different capabilities rather than the dominance of any single strategy. The professional satisfaction was substantial for both of us. Instead of struggling to adapt our natural strengths to inappropriate strategies, we could focus on providing services that aligned with our capabilities and client needs. The work was intellectually challenging and commercially rewarding. More importantly, the success validated choices that had seemed risky at the time. Declining merger opportunities to maintain specialized focus had preserved the capabilities that made Henderson distinctive and valuable. Resisting pressure to conform to generic approaches had allowed us to develop unique market positions. Looking forward, Henderson's specialized approach continues to create opportunities for growth and professional development. The technical expertise that initially seemed limiting has become a significant competitive advantage in markets where generic services are increasingly commoditized. The relationship-building capabilities that Patricia developed have similarly created sustainable client relationships that generate steady revenues and professional satisfaction. Her collaborative approach addresses genuine client needs in market segments, where technical specialization is less important than business understanding and personal attention. The combined result is an organization that leverages diverse strengths to serve different client needs effectively. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, Henderson has developed distinctive capabilities that create unique value in specific market segments. The lesson extends beyond business strategy to broader questions about professional development and career planning. Success often requires resisting pressure to conform to standardized approaches and instead developing specialized capabilities that create distinctive value. This insight has shaped my approach to professional development and career planning. Instead of trying to develop generic skills that might be useful in all situations, I focus on deepening expertise in areas where I can create unique value for clients who specifically need that knowledge. The approach is both professionally satisfying and commercially successful. Clients value specialized expertise that addresses their specific needs, and they're willing to pay premium rates for sophisticated analysis that they can't get elsewhere. The experience also reinforced important lessons about professional relationships and organizational effectiveness. Success often requires finding ways to leverage different strengths rather than trying to enforce standardized approaches that dilute everyone's capabilities. Patricia and I were both more effective when we could focus on our natural strengths rather than trying to coordinate incompatible approaches. Our different capabilities were complementary rather than conflicting when they were applied to appropriate opportunities. The broader insight is that professional success often comes from understanding what you do best and finding opportunities where those strengths create the most value. Generic approaches might seem safer or more efficient, but specialized capabilities frequently generate better results for both practitioners and clients. This realization has continued to shape Henderson's growth and development. Instead of trying to expand into every possible market segment, we focus on deepening our expertise in areas where we can provide distinctive value that clients can't find elsewhere. The strategy has proven both sustainable and profitable. Henderson's specialized approach continues to attract clients who specifically value technical expertise and personalized service. Our relationships are deeper and more stable because we're providing services that address genuine needs rather than generic offerings. Looking back on the evolution from losing Meridian to building Henderson's specialized practice, the key insight was recognizing that professional success requires alignment between capabilities, strategies, and client needs. Generic approaches often fail because they don't create distinctive value for anyone. Specialized expertise, when properly applied, can create sustainable competitive advantages that generate both professional satisfaction and commercial success. The challenge is understanding what you do best and finding opportunities where those strengths are most valued. This lesson has application beyond legal services to any professional context where technical expertise can create distinctive value. Instead of trying to compete directly with larger organizations using their own strategies, smaller entities can often succeed by developing specialized capabilities that address specific needs more effectively. The approach requires confidence in your distinctive strengths and willingness to resist pressure to conform to standardized approaches that might seem safer but actually dilute your competitive advantages. Success comes from doing what you do best for clients who specifically value those capabilities. For Henderson, this meant focusing on technically sophisticated clients who needed specialized expertise rather than trying to compete for relationship-driven opportunities where our strengths were less relevant. The specialized approach created sustainable competitive advantages that continue to drive growth and profitability. The experience also validated the importance of organizational culture and values in shaping strategy and execution. Henderson's commitment to technical excellence and client service created an environment where specialized expertise could flourish rather than being diluted into generic capabilities. This insight has broader implications for professional development and career planning. Success often requires finding organizational environments where your distinctive strengths are valued and can be developed rather than conforming to standardized approaches that might limit your potential. The lesson applies equally to individual career development and organizational strategy. Whether you're developing personal expertise or building organizational capabilities, success comes from understanding what creates distinctive value and focusing your efforts accordingly. For me personally, the experience reinforced the importance of technical expertise as a foundation for professional success. Instead of trying to develop generic relationship-building skills that would never be my strength, I focused on deepening regulatory knowledge that clients specifically valued. The approach has been both professionally satisfying and commercially successful. Clients seek out my expertise because they need sophisticated analysis that they can't find elsewhere, and they're willing to pay premium rates for specialized knowledge. More importantly, the work is intellectually challenging and personally rewarding. Instead of struggling to adapt my natural strengths to inappropriate strategies, I can focus on providing services that align with my capabilities and interests. The experience has also shaped my understanding of professional relationships and business development. Success often requires finding clients who specifically value your distinctive capabilities rather than trying to appeal to everyone through generic approaches. This insight has application beyond professional services to any context where specialized expertise can create distinctive value. Understanding what you do best and finding opportunities where those strengths are most valued is often more effective than trying to develop generic capabilities that appeal to broader markets. The lesson has continued relevance as markets become increasingly sophisticated and clients demand more specialized expertise. Generic approaches that might have been effective in less competitive environments are becoming less valuable as clients develop more sophisticated needs and expectations. Specialized expertise, when properly developed and applied, can create sustainable competitive advantages that generate both professional satisfaction and commercial success. The challenge is having confidence in your distinctive strengths and finding opportunities where they create the most value. For Henderson, this approach has created a sustainable business model that continues to attract clients who specifically value technical expertise and personalized service. Our specialized focus has become a competitive advantage that differentiates us from larger firms offering generic services. The success validates the original decision to focus on specialized capabilities rather than trying to compete directly with larger firms using standardized approaches. Sometimes the most effective strategy is to be distinctively good at what you do best, rather than trying to be adequate at everything.